All right, y'all. So we are discussing the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, season 2, episode 9. It only took 9 episodes to get here, but we are finally here. The moment that we have all been waiting for, the Jen Shah of it all. Jen Shah versus the law happened last night. And baby, let me tell you something. It was some riveting television. I don't know what was more riveting, whether it was seeing the Homeland Security show up, or if it was Jen Shah's insane story about Sharif's alleged internal bleeding. I don't know what was wilder, but I want you guys to chime in the chatterization down below. And also we have Adam from Up and Adam here to break it all down. We always love to have his perspective on this channel. So get into it. Get ready. We're about to go live right now. And we're back.
Hey,
welcome back.
I love being back here.
We love having you here. And this, I think, is the moment we have been waiting the past 9 episodes for.
9 whole episodes. Isn't that crazy to you? If you think about it, like over 2 months that we're waiting after giving us the ridiculous open that they did.
It's insane. And I think I tweeted this last night. This should have been episode 5. There were about 4 episodes that could have honestly been condensed. And I don't know. But I'm not even going to complain anymore. We're finally here. So I'm just going to be thankful that we are. I want to acknowledge one super chat really quickly from JMW, who says, Richie and Adam, hope y'all both have a lovely week. Thank you so. We wish you have the same type of week as us as well.
Yes.
Who else is in here? Listen, guys, we're going to start off with a rating of the episode. We're going to dive right into it because there's a lot to cover. It was 90 minutes of action, and I don't want to miss a single second of what we got to talk about. So go ahead and give us your ratings down in the chat. Adam, tell me what you would rate this episode now that we're finally here.
You know, after watching last night, I knew this time would come where you would ask me this question. What would I rate this episode? And I'm not going to be so harsh on them, because even if we wouldn't have had the Jen Shah drama this episode with the Mary and Whitney drama, it gave me a lot. So I'm going to give it a solid 8.
An 8?
Yes.
Simon Cowell of it all.
Yes. Oh, by the way, you stole my Simon Cowell position when you went in on the reunion part 4. So technically, let us know what you're giving it.
I'm actually going to give it a 10.
Okay.
I'm giving it a 10 because, again, it's the moment we've been waiting for. It's finally here. I'm going to tell you guys the truth. It did not disappoint. The 90 minutes didn't really feel quite like 90 minutes because of the way they structured the episode. There were some things that I felt like were kind of redeeming. There had been much of Heather's story that I had not been interested in this season, but for some reason, her sitting down with her niece as she was leaving the Mormon church and the explanations that they gave for the tears of, what it was like in terms of getting into heaven. I was absolutely like all in on that scene right there. To me, I loved it because I think it's something that I don't know much about. The Mary and Whitney situation, it was crazy, but it was also a little heartbreaking for me at the same time, to be quite honest with you. Like, it's not even a scene I think I could watch over again because of the way Mary just eviscerated Whitney. And we'll talk more about it when we get to it. But yeah, I just felt like so much of it was really good television. And it's a shame that they waited 9 episodes to give us this.
I mean, back to the 9 episodes. No, by the way, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
Did you just give it a 10 because I gave it an 8 and you're trying to keep me in that Simon Cowell position?
No, that was what I was going to give it anyway.
And two, after watching Mary come a little bit unhinged in this Italian cooking fiasco, are you still a huge Mary fan?
Well, I do like to be the Paula of the group. I'm definitely gonna say that. I will readily admit to that. So I might have given it higher points just because I want to maintain that position. Yes, you might be correct with that. Okay. But no, I really did enjoy it. And in regards to Mary, I didn't like what happened last night. I actually liked her a little less after last night. I still think that she is good for the show. I think that I like the chaotic energy of it. But the things that Whitney was reading from our text messages really disturbed me. And it really did not sit well with me. And to see Whitney, stand up and tell Mary that she loved her. And, she was, even despite all of that, and to see Mary not still break in some way, shape, or form, I just felt like it felt cruel to watch.
Right. No, it was intense to watch. And, Mary was very demeaning in this scene where we saw her kind of get snappy with Whitney. And by just calling her a little girl, and, I thought about this earlier. I feel like a lot of the women are very quick when they clap back. Like, for example, we just watched the Potomac finale last night. Candace is very smart and she's quick. Like, she throws them at you like daggers verbally. She's on it. And for Whitney, I feel like a lot of times she's trying to catch herself in what she wants to say, and she's thinking about it a lot. So for her, I almost feel bad because you could tell she gets treated differently. Like, oh, you're the young one. You're the one who doesn't have life experience. You're the, whatever. And I was happy to see her stand up for herself.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that, and I think we'll touch on it just a little bit more later, but I also wonder if there is some undercurrent that we're not necessarily understanding with Salt Lake City, because there seems to be some situations. They've said it about Lisa. Mary's now saying it about Whitney, about people looking down on each other in this group. Right. And we don't see it on, I know for me, I don't feel like I see it on camera, but maybe it's something that's happening off camera that we're not noticing. Do you sense that, or is it not red? Like, I don't know. That's what I'm getting.
Well, I think we have two problems here, right? So I feel like the first problem is I don't think this was an authentic group of friends to start off. I don't think these women really got on with each other or really knew a whole lot about each other. I feel like they were just kind of pushed into a filming situation. Mm-hmm. So they don't really have anything to go off of except for the heightened moments that they participate in with each other on the show. And then the second part is I feel like a lot of the footage, we have to remember too, when they go out to dinner or whatever, they're sometimes sitting there for 4, 5, 6 hours because they have to film all these different shots. And they're sitting in a situation that we're only getting like 8 minutes of. So when you don't know each other, I feel like it would be easy to kind of get on each other's nerves and demean each other and not like each other and have one woman probably think she's heading the group and I'm going to take out, like, I could see that. If that makes sense.
It does. It does. I want to start a little bit. I want to take it back just a little bit because we actually begin the episode with Mary calling all of the girls to invite them to this Italian style cooking class. And she basically gives them a dress code because Mary shades the rest of their wardrobe choices, which I did find funny in that moment. At that point, I was like, okay, she's kind of funny. But what we see here is that Whitney not answering her phone call is seeming to set Mary off.
Right.
Now, the only thing I want to touch on right now is that later on, Whitney conflicts Mary's story because Mary says that Whitney never called her back. Whitney says that she called Mary back 2 hours later.
I feel like if Whitney is going to be able to show us and give us receipts and read these vile text messages, even though Mary might not remember Whitney calling her back, I think Whitney's at the point where she knows if she says it, she has to back it up. So I feel like she would have that receipt.
But do you think we're going to get that receipt, or do you think that they'll even think about this?
I mean, she might pull a Dr. Wendy Osefo and come out with a blown photo of like Mary Cosby called it this time with like the number blurred out. I don't know if she could, but I don't know if she thought to screenshot it in that moment or what. But I do feel like I'm believing Whitney on this because she doesn't really come across like, by Mary saying Whitney never got back to her, really you could tell she's just, I was about to use the other word, but mad, upset that she never answered her in the first place. I feel like Whitney did actually get back to her, and it was later. It might not even have been 2 hours. It might have been 3 hours, but she probably did get back to her, but that's not what Mary wants to remember right now because she's upset.
Yeah, it's interesting also too, and it's kind of hard to have this conversation in order without kind of tipping and toeing back and forth between what happened at the beginning of the episode and what happened later. But it's interesting that Mary also seemed to note that even as Whitney is trying to tell her she's had her back and she's her friend, Mary, for some reason, is feeling like Whitney never called her back. And so it's two totally different versions of their friendship. And I wonder if maybe that's where the breakdown is. For Mary, she has some type of other expectation. And for Whitney feels like she's fulfilling her expectations as a friend. And maybe Mary is not receiving it.
Right. But, there were a few moments like I could see where Whitney would feel like the situation is unfair because we have to remember too, Mary is used to being in front of her congregation, or isn't allegedly if she's not usually there, but we don't know that. But she's used to being in front of the congregation where they look at her like she is God, right? That's what we're hearing. So they look at her like she is God, which means she's way up here. The congregation, like they probably, I couldn't even imagine what thinking someone is God would be. You know what I mean? Like someone who's on this earth and being like, oh, this is God. So I think with that, she feels I'm up here, Whitney, you're down here. And she's used to getting that sort of attention that favors that. The whole situation is strange to me, but I could see, it gives me the vibes of like Camille Grammer on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when she's sitting in that hot tub with the girl and the guy. And she's like, oh, I helped you pay your rent and when you were homeless and whatever. I just have some sort of Jesus complex. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, this reminds me of something.
I love a callback, by the way. I think that, let me just say this. If it were me, Mary would be very upset because I am the last person to try to FaceTime and you didn't make an appointment to FaceTime me. So she would probably curse me out because unlike Whitney, listen, sometimes you just get so into, and some of these women have kids, they have things going on. So to me, getting that upset about it and then trying to pull that prank on her the way that she did, it just gave me naked wasted vibes. And that's an OC reference for those of you guys who are OG Housewives fans. You will know what I'm talking about with Tamra Judge and with Gretchen Rossi. But I just felt like it was completely unnecessary. Like if you're going to get mad at somebody for not calling you back, I think you have a problem.
Right. Well, and not only that too, like you said, even though we know Mary Cosby has a son, but Whitney has little kids. You know what I mean? So the carpool thing, I get that. And I'm just as guilty as you are. You have to make an appointment to even call me because I won't answer. And then I'll get back to you. And then my family, my friends, everyone gets so upset with me because I'm the worst person with the phone. But with the Mary Cosby, being upset about her not answering the phone and then trying to pull this prank and then the audacity to be upset with her because she didn't fall for the prank. I'm like, what kind of, can I be a fly on the wall on the inside of that head of yours and just see what goes through your mind? Because that's crazy. You're trying to set her up like Elle Woods. What?
Right. Exactly. And then you're mad at her because she doesn't fall for it. It's kind of like
crazy.
Mary is something different. Okay.
Yes.
And I've said it before. Mary gives me Kim Richards vibes in a very different way, but they still give me the same unpredictable. I have no idea what's going to happen. And at any moment, it's a powder keg that is ready to explode type of person. And that's all I can say.
I don't think you're wrong, and it makes me wonder too, if you come for me, I'll send Jesus for you, well, or after you. Like, it makes me think, could you tell, like, I don't even want to say this stuff on YouTube, but it makes me wonder, like, is there a deeper meaning? Like, mess with me. Hold on, wait for it, because I have a lot of people who think I am God. Like, don't ask for this. It makes me think, because if Whitney sharing that, someone who knows her said, you don't want to make her mad because this could get wild. And then someone else is saying, no, they're very dangerous people. Is there something that we don't know? Because even in my interview, her cousin was claiming, or her nephew, uncle was claiming, that she had a substance abuse problem, that she had another man, that Robert Sr. has another woman, allegedly. Like, he was going down this list of all of these things that we might not know about her.
Interestingly enough, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, some of the things that she was saying in the text messages that Whitney read that were allegedly from Mary, which, I mean, in my mind, I'm inclined to believe Whitney, because I don't think she just doesn't give me, I'm going to make up this lie.
Right.
But it felt to me like, with Mary kind of calling her out on her, personal enhancements, I will say, whether it's Botox, fillers, or what have you, I feel like Mary doesn't really look like the Mary of old, to be quite honest with you. So I don't think she has any way or shape or form to be talking about or criticizing anybody else for getting any enhancements either.
To be fair, that was another part of that interview that I did. And this man, who is her family, said that she has all of these different homes, including a penthouse in New York that the congregation was allegedly paying for. And she would take leaves and go get work done, allegedly, in New York. And then she would come back and she would look like a different person. And she would be like, oh, well, the Lord, and all kinds of other stuff. I don't know. Like, I don't know how deep this goes. It kind of makes me think about it. But yes, she looks like a different Mary. And she just said on TV, I've never had anything done. I don't need to get anything done. But you look like that's like Dorit saying on the reunion that she didn't mess with her nose. I'm not buying it.
Like, come on now. I get it. I feel like people have a right to keep those things a secret, but at the end of the day, if it's noticeable, I mean, you might as well tell us the truth, because there is clearly something about Mary that's different.
There looks like a lot about Mary that's different, but yes.
Just a quick note for those who may be inquiring: Jeannie was not invited. And Jeannie did not get a lot of screen time this episode either. So I thought that was interesting. The one thing I will say that I do like about Mary is that if she doesn't like you, she is not going to invite you. And typically housewives are usually more like, well, I'm still going to invite this person, even though I'm not getting along with them. But Mary's just like, nope, she's not coming.
Which I wish producers wouldn't let her do, because that takes away from potential drama that we could have had,
right. Or
resolve. If Ginny wanted to approach the situation again with Mary, or if Mary had something to get off her chest, that would have been another. I mean, then at that point, this whole lunch would have been a free for all. But I think that would have been good. And I don't know why producers don't make them all have to film with each other. I was talking to Dana Wilkie, $25,000 sunglasses.
I love her.
She said, yeah, I love her too. She said that there was one moment where we saw Taylor Armstrong's tea party for her daughter, and it was her birthday party, and Dana was supposed to go, but production called her and said, we don't want you showing up. And then there was a moment at this tea party where her and Camille had a back and forth, and they didn't want Dana interjecting. So I'm kind of wondering if they didn't want Ginny to take away from the attention from what they knew was what was about to go down, which was Whitney and Mary. My head is going,
Yeah, I mean, but to continue that conversation, it kind of leads into the next scene that we see with Meredith having Ginny over. And, Ginny is still learning Mary, and Meredith tries to coach her through that Mary may be a little untrusting of people. And I think that the way Meredith described her was actually very accurate. But it was interesting to me to then kind of go back to the Italian dinner when Meredith went outside to comfort Whitney, when she came back, Mary was like, well, you didn't even hear my side. You didn't even hear my side. And Meredith had to point out to her, like, hey, I tried to intervene. I tried to talk to you about it, but you weren't hearing it. I wonder what Mary is going to think when she realizes that Meredith and Whitney were having that conversation about her and her congregation outside at that event. Because Meredith hasn't told her anything yet.
Right. Well, see, this is where it's going to come back and bite Meredith already, because now she's had the opportunity to tell her and she hasn't. And I think that Mary will probably be very annoyed and probably mad once she sees that scene, which I'm sure was probably last night or a couple days before, right? Mm-hmm. But, you know, that's another example that I have of her getting herself all worked up. And she's like, well, you were there for her. You didn't hear my side. You didn't hear my side. But she was so working herself up and dismissing Meredith over here off to the side that she didn't even remember that part even transpired. That's why she immediately apologized once Meredith explained it. And I'm wondering if the same thing happened with Whitney. Like, oh, you missed the call, but that's not what you remember. You remember calling 4 times with no answer. So you're working yourself up. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. I have a good question here. Black Gal says, why is Mary's church considered a cult, but the Mormon church isn't? They are the same to me. Well, I think we can look at them almost as parallels. For me, I can only speak for myself. I look at them as parallels mostly because I think that I know very little about either. I know very little about Mormon church. I know very little about Mary's church. But what I will say is that there does seem to be some similarities in terms of maybe the cult word, I think, is kind of what it feels like to me with Mary's church. But the way that Heather describes the Mormon church feels like it's something that's also very hard to get out of.
I think that's a great example, or like the way you put it, you know. Jason, my fiance, actually grew up in the Mormon church and then left the Mormon church when, you know, they found out he was gay. And apparently it is a very tight-knit, his parents are still Mormon, but apparently it is very tight-knit. You know, everyone, they do have certain expectations, you know, for everyone who attends the church. And as much as, you know, like, for example, Jason's dad ended up getting cancer and he lost his job. His mom had to stay home and take care of him. They couldn't afford their bills. But since they put into that, it's called tithing, right? The till. Mm-hmm. So since they donate 10% of everything they make. So if on Christmas you get $100, you give 20 of those dollars to the church. Everything that you receive, you give 10%. And they ended up paying his whole mortgage, all of his medical bills, everything until he got better because he paid into this thing for so long. So they do, I guess I could see like the benefits and the, you know, but you made a great point with Heather said she felt like it was really hard to break out of this situation, which does make it feel like that. I don't want to call it that, but. You know.
Right. I don't want to call it that. I don't want to call either one of them that. Yeah. But I just do think for me as a viewer, both of them are equally as fascinating. Because again, I know very little about both of them, but I only can go by what we hear. And I think especially the way we hear it from Heather's perspective, it just sounds so, I mean, it's just a lot to take in. That's all I can really say. Did you get anything, speaking of Heather and the church and, you know, kind of getting out of that, did you take anything else from that discussion that she had with her niece?
No, I thought first of all, I just want to say, someone just pointed out 10% of 100 is 10, right? Yes, I got ahead of myself and I said 20. I can count, I promise. Thanks, guys. But, you know, I thought it was interesting because when I was watching this, I was watching it with Jason last night, and he was telling me how freeing it felt and how, you know, there is a lot of judgment, and he could completely relate to that conversation. So it was interesting for me to sit next to him and see how he reacted to the conversation. And I thought it was touching. You know, this has to be hard. You're told one thing your whole life, and this is how you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to raise your family. And there's this whole set of rules and guidelines that doesn't apply to the rest of the world, just within this community. And then trying to break out of everything, you know, I couldn't even imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of did it too. I have a Southern family from South Florida who I was like, I'm packing my Ford Fusion and driving to Los Angeles. I'm leaving all my 11 brothers and sisters behind and the family. Goodbye. But this feels different.
It very, very, but I can understand the similarities being that that's what you knew. That's all you knew. That was your family. So it is a big break, and it is something very different to have to experience. Just to switch gears real quick, we see Jen going snowshoeing with Stuart. I don't really know what snowshoeing is outside of just walking around in the snow with these little ski-like shoes on. I don't really know what it is. Do you know what it is? Because I don't.
So at first I thought they were going to kind of ski on them and like slide a little bit, almost like a snow version of a Heeley, right? But then I'm watching and they're just stomping through. So I was like, so these are just kind of snow boots.
Pretty much. Okay, that's what I got from it too. So we're on the same page.
Okay.
The whole point of this conversation, though, with Stuart and Jen really seemed to be about, it was just fascinating knowing, given what we knew was going to come up later. Stuart and Jen are having a conversation in which, you know, Jen is talking about all the sacrifices that she's made with her businesses and the setting up their companies and the sacrifices that she's made for Stuart and his family and how loyal he's been to her. And how now she is hoping to try to spend more time with her younger son, Omar, because she spent so much time away building all of her multiple businesses. This was an interesting scene again, because I was like, oh, Lord, you're sitting here talking to this man about all this loyalty he has to you, but will he have that loyalty in court?
No. You know, this was so cringy because we know that the editors did this, right? And they wanted us to feel this moment of how close Jen and Stuart actually were. Or, yeah, I was about to say are, but no, technically were. And when she's going through and she's like, my therapist, and I need to really focus on the relationships that are important to me. And Stuart, you're important to me. And I don't just do this for me. I do it to put food on the table for your family too. I was thinking, he just took a plea deal, which means he had to flip on you. Because I've talked to Emily D. Baker about it and Ronald Richards. His plea deal means he's throwing you under the bus. So this didn't age well.
Not at all. Okay, not at all. To bring things back up to speed, because we talked a lot about, you know, Mary and Whitney and Heather, but when we get back to the Italian cooking class and they start to eat, we get a conversation between Lisa and Jen about Lisa's Fresh Wolf event that happened last episode. Now, we didn't really get a chance to touch on this last week because we were both out last week. But, you know, during last week's episode, two things happened with Lisa and Jen. One, Lisa brought up the fact that the ex-assistant or stylist or whomever it was that Jen was working with, there was a video or an audio of Jen screaming at this person, allegedly. And that made the media rounds. And allegedly, according to Lisa, Whitney had gifted that ex-stylist or assistant some of her Iris and Bow product. And she told Jen this. I'm not necessarily sure why she told her, but she told her. And then during the Fresh Wolf event, which is her son's company, Lisa's son's company, she didn't invite Jen to that event. She only invited Meredith and Whitney, which then raised alarms for Jen because she thought that she was Lisa's ace boom cone. So now we get Jen asking Lisa, really, the bottom line is, I wasn't invited to your event. And Mary's like, I wasn't invited either. And they want to know why. Any thoughts about this whole argument right here?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you why. So Jen wasn't invited because I feel like Lisa Barlow was catering to Meredith and that friendship. And for Mary Cosby, she wasn't invited because there was this whole plan to set up and talk about the church. So I mean, I understand that they would both feel like, oh, wait a minute, why would you invite Meredith and Whitney and not the rest of us? Because she said it's a small event and it was for her kids. But you're also filming this event for your kids, which means the other housewives, just like Ginny being allowed to go to Mary's event, they should be allowed to go to the events. Or am I wrong?
So you know what somebody said last week, and let me say this. For whatever reason, I think I'm always going to be a diehard Lisa Barlow fan. There is something about her that I feel like as I discover more about her, I feel like she gets housewives, and there's something I like about that. But I kind of wonder if she might have been doing a little bit of producing with having Whitney there, and maybe having had Cameron have that conversation about Mary with Whitney instead of Meredith.
Right. I think that we've seen her pre-produce a few things at this point. One was the caterer, right? And then coming up to the table, that felt pre-produced. And then also this moment with Mary's some acquaintance, that also felt pre-produced. And I agree with you. I like her, but I feel like LVP, Nene, Kenya, they're like the masters of pre-producing without letting us know that they're doing it. And for Lisa Barlow, I don't get that. Like, she's not good at it. Yeah. She's not good at keeping it from us, because as the fans in the audience, we're watching and we're like, this is so obvious. Yeah. And then when Whitney, verifies how obvious it is, it just makes it even more obvious because you can't blame it on editing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the problem. With LVP, up until the moment this whole book came out, I still believe that LVP did not sell that story about the dog to the magazine. I definitely believe she didn't. You know what I mean? But you have producers saying that maybe she did.
But so it's an ex-producer, right?
Yeah, it's an ex-producer that's allegedly very close to Kyle and all right. Of that. So there's more to the story, but in my mind, the point is, if Lisa Vanderpump was self-producing, we didn't see it.
Right.
The ladies might have seen it, but we didn't. And so I think that Lisa probably, if she is, not saying that she is, because we can't prove it, but it sure looks like it. Right? It's quacking like a duck at this point. And so we have no choice but to assume there's a duck on the loose. It was interesting that Whitney immediately assessed what was happening in that moment and, attempted to call Lisa out for it. But it didn't really seem to go anywhere in terms of, their dynamic in general. But it does seem like Heather still has both eyes on Lisa from afar.
Right. No, with the Whitney thing, I feel like she's very in tune. Like, she's right here and she's waiting for Lisa to make these moves or for something to come out that she can be on guard about. And this was a moment where she was like, hold on, by you even asking Jen about me giving product to this person, you're planting a seed. You're trying to stir more drama. Oh, that was another example. Third example. You're planting a seed. You're trying to stir more drama. And actually, yeah, I want to know the same thing Jen wants to know. Why did you invite me and not her? And I'm thinking, yes, Whitney. It might take you a second to kind of think about what you're saying, but at least you're saying important stuff.
And I think, too, there's also always the character on a show who really is not clued into what's happening and has to figure it out. And it almost feels like Whitney is that person who is, at least from my perspective, at least from at this point now, I feel like I'm almost in the seat with her, like moment by moment, figuring out what is happening on this show.
Right. No, and it's kind of nice because it feels genuine, authentic. Yeah. Like she is trying to piece it together, not like she's already clued in and she's acting, which I would rather have that than, Kyle Richards being like, oh, what did she say? And I'm like, okay, girl. Mm-hmm. No, we just like when Brandy told you guys that she hooked up with Denise and everyone acted all shocked. And then we found out that Kim Richards and Kyle set this up. Like sometimes I can feel when they're acting, and with Whitney, I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't get that either. And I do like that. It's refreshing. Let's see here. I want to move on to the day of the Aspen trip. No, excuse me, Vail. Is it Vail or Aspen? No,
There.
Meredith had to go to Aspen, so she wasn't going to be able to ride to Vail with the ladies. So that was it. And we learned that Mary is going to take a private flight. I'm not mad at that. To Vail because she allegedly has a headache, but really they think that she just doesn't want to be around Whitney and probably Jenny either. I will say this about Jenny. There's one thing that bothers me about her, and I will say this. In the beef with her and Mary, Jen, and she said it in this episode too. She talks about how she didn't like Mary telling her what to do. The only reason they got into it because she was telling Mary what to do, which was to shut the F up. So Jenny's beef with Mary doesn't make sense to me, in my mind.
I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. The whole thing doesn't make sense. And I feel like by Jenny popping off the way she did, which now we understand, it was the anniversary of her daughter's passing. So we get why she was so heated, but it didn't warrant all of this. Like now this feels like this is something it doesn't need to be.
Exactly. Like we don't even need this right now because there's already too much chaos going on. Okay, so everybody is arriving to Beauty Lab and Laser except Meredith and and Mary. And it's looking like a lovely day. They're packing their bags. And I could watch this. I'm actually going to watch it again when I get off this with you. But it was so good. First of all, I love a packing montage. I love just seeing everybody arrive and preparing for the trip. It's always fun for me. But it was the slow creep of, hey, something is wrong here when Jen gets the call. And she has Whitney de-mic her. But what was even crazier to me was that she's told the ladies that Sharif was in the hospital, that he had internal bleeding, and he had already had a previous appointment. And I'm like, okay, girl, did you... because all the women are going to hear is your husband has internal bleeding. He's in the hospital. But as I listened to the story and as I wrote it down, I'm literally writing down that she's telling them he has internal bleeding. He's in the hospital. He had an appointment, and she made it seem like that's how he ended up there. I was like, if you're gonna tell a lie, do not tell a lie. I always will say this, and I heard it when I was younger.
I know it's coming.
Never lie about being sick. You never lie about being sick because you will always end up getting sick. And then to take things even further, why would you lie that your spouse had internal bleeding? That to me was a different kind of low. I did not like that at all.
No. And, it was so quick too. Like she had to think on her feet really quick. And that was the first thing that came to your mind. Husband has internal bleeding. And that's what she gave us. But no, this is really a bad lie. And I agree with you. You never lie about being sick or the death of a family member because God forbid something happens, you'll feel terrible. But in this moment, I think she had to get really witty about it, I guess. But I'm really disappointed in Whitney. This is a moment where Whitney could have solidified her snowflake for the rest of this franchise just by not unplugging the mic. Had she not have unplugged the mic, we would have had a moment, but she left it, she unplugged it, and I was like, what are you doing? Nene knew. She understood. She did it. She caught Eva. You missed it. You missed your mark.
But again, that just goes to who Whitney is as a person. All she's knowing is, hey, girl, take this mic off. Okay. Like, I can't be mad at her because that was authentic to her, right? What was wild, again, that whole moment with Jen Shah was wild for me. I don't even know how to describe it. I was just so disappointed in her because she could have made up any type of story, any type of other emergency outside of that. And in my mind, when her aunt came to get her, because I think they explicitly stated on the screen that it was her, that she drives off with her aunt, I was thinking to myself, where were they going?
I feel like back to the house. Like, I think he was like, you need to get back here now. And then that's why she headed that way. But then they probably figured out that he called because they were probably still there with her and him. And they were like, oh, okay, he just called his wife. Now she knows that we're coming. We need to get there now. And they caught her driving down the side of the road. That's my theory. This is just a theory.
Because if you think about it like this, if you get the call, listen, hey, they are after you, girl. They're on to you, and they're coming your way. I guess my thought is maybe that she did not want it to happen on camera.
Mm-hmm.
No. But in my mind, I can't believe she would think that she could just head out and be on the run.
Well, I thought it was funny too because it was either Whitney or Heather Gay who said, "Should we call and tell her?" And Lisa Barlow's like, "I don't think that's a good idea."
Do that.
Yeah, I would not do that. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, yeah, at least Lisa might actually be smarter than we think. Okay,
that's why I said it earlier. I said she understands. There's something about her that's it's at least forward thinking enough to know.
Right.
Don't involve yourself any further. But Lisa was like, no, we're going to call Stu because he's going to have the intel that we actually need.
I wonder if they ended up letting Stu know before Stu actually, or did they? Well, they must have divided. I think Emily said this, that they kind of divide up in teams and they try to get everybody at the same time so nobody can reach out to the other person. So they probably already had Stu at that point. This is some next level. Like, could you imagine having HSI?
No.
Like,
okay.
NYPD, like Homeland. Could you imagine just 15 people saying, Jen Shah, I need you to come with me? My heart would fall into my,
Let me just tell you this. I mean, just in keeping it all the way 100% real, especially as a black man, if that were to listen, I think I would be gone right then and there, like passed away, like, because I can't, like, to see all of those, the HSI there, there's SWAT teams there, there's helicopters there. What would you be thinking if you are on that cast? Like, what? And they're asking themselves, is Jen playing a joke on us? I'm like, that's a real expensive joke.
Yeah. No, I don't think. Yeah. No. I mean, I think they were obviously all in awe. So that's why I'm excited to see once Meredith finds out, once Mary finds out, what is her reaction going to be? Seeing them continue this trip in Vail, because now all they're going to be talking about is the Jen Shah legal stuff in the same way the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills did it. Jen Shah's not going to be there, but they're going to be reading articles and trying to piece things together. And they're going to start talking about her, which means we're going to get an insecure Jen Shah knowing the women are talking about her. And then boom, let the chaos begin. She's about to be defensive. We're going to get another Erica Sutton moment. And I am ready for the rest of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City.
Same. Speaking of which, just as a teaser, guys, before we go, Andy did say that the next episode was probably one of the best episodes of Real Housewives ever.
I have an opinion on this.
Tell.
Okay. So when he said one of the best, like one of the top 5, I was thinking, oh, okay, that's a big deal. Top 5, right? And then I was thinking in my head, hold on, but you also just told us that the Beverly Hills reunion was killer. So, Mr. Andy Cohen, whom I love so much, I might have to view it first before I go based on. I'm not going to sit down on Sunday and be like, this is the top episode because Andy said it. I'm going to watch it and I'm going to be like, now, Andy, you're making me have trust problems. Or I'm going to be like, oh, he was right. It's good.
Adam, you're right. You're absolutely right. I stand corrected. Upon further reflection, especially of what he teased about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion, I am definitely inclined to agree with you. We best go into next week with critical eyes, okay? Just waiting to see what they give us. What we do know is most of the episode takes place moments after the end of this week's episode, and it chronicles the ladies on their trip to Vail. So we're going to get a lot more reactions. We're going to get their speculations about what's occurring. And I think it's going to be great television. But it's interesting. I like that I do and I don't like this, that they pulled we're not even going to give you guys a sneak peek at next week, kind of like what they did for much of the season of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because I do like to have something to get excited about. But it does have me very curious about what next week will bring.
Right. No, I agree with that. And I believe he said it was filmed, like everything we're seeing next week. I know you said it's all in the same day, but it's all within 8 hours, right? So it's just like the really like getting into the thick of it. I think if that's true, then it has to be a great episode, because this is major. This is like, I couldn't even imagine being on a TV show and someone storming your set and being like, Jen Shah, you're facing 50 years in prison. And now that they're all going to start reading this and they read the words like money laundering and telemarketing scheme in 50 years, that's huge. I want to see their reactions.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I can't wait. And we will be back here next week, y'all, to talk all about it, to see if it really was one of the best episodes in Housewives history. Adam, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you guys in the chat. Adam, tell them where they can find you and if there's anything that we should be on the lookout for from you this week.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on my channel at Up and Adam. And then tonight, if you guys are around, we usually pick like 4 to 6 topics, and we do a Hot Messy Topics at 6 p.m. Eastern, where you guys get to call in, join the live, and just give us your unfiltered opinions. And that's what I like. That's why when I take callers, normally if I sit there and I'm doing a live by myself and I'm talking to myself, I'm like, oh, I'm annoying myself. So if I take callers and they're like, Adam, you're stupid as, you didn't know that? I'm like, well, that's not a great way to put it, but I welcome your opinion. Thanks for sharing. And then it just goes wild and I lose control over it. Then I spend the last 30 minutes trying to wrangle everyone back together. So it's a lot, but you're welcome to join.
Awesome. And guys, if you are in the DC area tonight, I will be doing Fox 5, Like It or Not, at 7 p.m. But don't tell anybody. I think I'm supposed to be a surprise 4th guest. No surprise anymore. With that being said, guys, join us next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Make sure you guys are following Adam on all social platforms as well. And be sure to check out his Hot Messy Topics tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Fox 5 for me. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.